Hello, hello.
Hello, hello,
Hi.
hello. Hey, today we have Arvid sharing his wisdom with us. Arvid needs no introductions, but I'll still, for formality's sake, I'll still introduce Arvid. He's the founder of an edtech SaaS called Feedback Panda. He is the author of books like Zero to Sold, The Embedded Entrepreneur, the maker of the course called Find Your Following, and also the founder of a little known SaaS called Permanent
Hmm.
Link,
Yes.
uh, must for very interesting product for book authors. He has been actively building in public, and he has been sharing his wisdom, his knowledge on Twitter, on his blog, and his podcast for a while now. And I've learned a lot from him. And I thought like it would be fun to have a live conversation with him and ask all the questions that I have
Yeah,
stored up, and everyone, all of his fans
sure.
have stored up. So thank you for doing this, Arvid.
Pleasure.
Thank you for
Yeah.
taking out your time.
Yeah.
And we'll get started. We'll get started with something very, very basic. Idea first or audience first? What do we do?
Hmm. Well, the thing is, most of us get trained to think idea first, right? Because everything around us is ideas, products, ideas. Everybody talks about ideas and business ideas and whatnot. So it's not surprising that we very much focus on ideas and we look to validate ideas and we look to build products to solve problems expressed by ideas. It's all around us. So a lot of founders think that that's the right way to go. In some ways, that actually is not a bad idea, right? With some things that are like so different that there is no market for it yet. People don't know, like Uber or Airbnb, these big things. But most businesses are not Uber. Most businesses are not Airbnb, which is good because most businesses should be profitable. And I don't think Uber or Airbnb are profitable businesses. But if you want to build a business for yourself, a lifestyle business, as they're called, or just a self funded bootstrap business, you might want to find an idea that is less risky than completely inventing a new market. And for that, an audience first approach or a community first approach or a customer first approach, whatever you call it, is the more solid and safer choice. The idea is really to wait with your idea until you
Yes.
know who you're serving and what problems they have. Because if you figured out there's a market, there's a group of people out there somewhere that all kind of have the same problems. And then you go into that group of people, ask them, so what are your problems? And they talk to you about all kinds of problems, but some of them stand out. Some of them are critical, some of them are common, some of them are very painful and can't be delegated. There's all kinds of categories there. And then you find a couple that fall into these categories, then you have a critical problem and a validated audience. Now is a good time for your idea, right? You know, these people need help. This is what they need help with. How can I help them? That is the idea. That's at the point when the idea should happen. And that is definitely an audience first or community first, problem first approach. And I very much prefer that for software as a service businesses, self-funded bootstrap businesses, service businesses, or knowledge businesses, media businesses, whatever. Figure out who you want to help and serve, figure out what they need help with, and then come up with an idea.
Yes.
I hope that answers your
Yeah.
question.
Actually, yeah, that was my follow-up. The second question as well. That in your book, The Embedded Entrepreneur, you talk about that push the idea to as late as possible.
Yeah.
Right. And I think you just answered that question already. That first you need to figure out the problem that you want to solve,
Yeah.
and find your audience or community that you solve the problem for,
Yeah.
and then you come up with your idea.
Yeah,
But
right. And
yeah.
you even may have another step in there because it's like audience or market or whatever you call it, people, problem, and then solution, and then product. And solution and product are not necessarily the same thing, right? Because you can come up with any kind of solution to a problem that does not have to be expressed as a software product. It could just be pen and paper. Like actually, most solutions to most problems are really basic solutions. So
Yes.
understanding the nature of the best solution or a good solution is more important than coming up with a really cool website idea or figuring out which tech stack to use or whatever founders do that they really shouldn't be doing when they start, right? You have the figuring out how problem and solution are connected, and in what context does the solution need to appear? What are the inputs? What are the expected outputs, right? What do people start with? Where do they need help? And what do they want to end up with? And maybe even more important, in what existing workflow does this have to fit? Because I can tell you one thing, if I do a professional thing, if I am a, I don't know, professional writer, professional designer, I have an existing workflow. I have existing tools. I have existing file formats that I use or templates that I use for my work. Because I'm a professional, I optimize things. So you cannot sell me something that will completely change how I work. Not gonna happen. So if you want to build a good product that solves a problem for an existing customer, then you need to figure out where does the solution fit, what do I need to integrate with, what input outputs are there, and how can I make this as easy as possible for somebody to add into their repertoire, which is so nice. I've been using a lot of products recently in building what is it called? Find Your Following Essentials is a kind of the short course that I just released earlier today, which is like a condensed version of my longer course. And to do this, I needed to edit a lot of videos that I already had. So I had MP4 files and I had subtitle files that I needed to convert to something else, which is also video and subtitle, but I needed a tool that could take these and produce the outcome that I expected. And if the script, the tool that I use, didn't have that capacity, then I wouldn't use it, right? Because I already have these files and I already know what I want. So if you want to sell me something where I can only do something in the web and I have to kind of click it together from all kinds of places that, you know, make it hard for me to use, I'm not going to buy your product. So workflow specificity and input output knowledge, that is maybe more important than the whole talking about like software stacks and cool new React Native apps or whatever. It's also important, but at a much later point. And unless you have figured out who you're serving, what the problem is, and how it can be best solved, you're essentially still walking around in the dark, right? Because you don't know if the thing that you're going to be building is actually going to be so interesting that so that people exchange their hard-earned money for whatever you're doing.
Of course. Yeah, that makes complete sense. A related question: when we start to go out and find our right market or find our people, especially when you start doing it on Twitter, right?
Yeah.
Like, what is the ideal way to do it on Twitter? Because what happens usually on Twitter is that once you start trying to build an audience, you form a bubble around you of like-minded people, which is good, but they might not be your audience. They are just, especially when you start building in public, they are like people just like you who are building in public, who are building their own products. Right? I was recently told by somebody on Twitter that I'm not part of your audience. I'm part of your network, maybe. And I was like, yeah, of course, sure. Whatever label you want to put, right? So like, how do we make that differentiation between an audience, a market, a network, and then how do we do it on Twitter effectively?
Maybe the most important thing to say here at this point is that there are combinations of or just ideas, business ideas, or business industries, right? Fields in which a business operates, where Twitter is not the perfect network to do it. That maybe like Twitter is not the silver bullet for building an audience or marketing your product. There are some where your audience, your customer audience, is on Twitter, and your founder peer group is also on Twitter. That's usually the most high value kind of building public arena that you can be in, because you can message to both at the same time. But I see a lot of founders who have their audience on Reddit, in a particular niche subreddit, because Reddit, there's subreddits for everything, and like really everything, and or Facebook groups. There's a guy on Twitter. He runs Hauling Buddies, and Hauling Buddies is an animal hauling company. His marketing is all happening on Facebook, but he's building in public on Twitter. So because he knows his founder peers, everybody who like him is trying to build a SaaS business is on Twitter, and all his horse owners and dog owners that need their animals shipped from A to B, they are in the Facebook groups that he himself curates. Like he has Facebook groups that he runs for animal shipping, that he even has like paid administrators to run for him with tens of thousands of people in them, and he organizes that and he builds in both platforms at the same time. So if you are doing anything in the software space, Twitter is great because developers are on Twitter as a customer and as a potential, entrepreneur. If you have something that does not have a Twitter audience or Twitter presence, I guess, for your customer audience, you will need to balance this. If you sell to recruiters, probably going to be on LinkedIn, right? As your marketing audience. And you might even be able to build in public on LinkedIn because there's an intersection there between founders and your potential audience. So Twitter is great for the moments where these two intersect on Twitter. Other than that, as a founder, Twitter will always be great to build in public. You just might not be able to market as much on this platform as you, or not as successfully as you would do on other platforms. So that's how I would approach this. I am lucky. Writers, software engineers, founders, they're all on Twitter. Obviously, Twitter audience builders, for whom I made the course, they are also on Twitter. But there, if I had another, like that's the thing, Feedback Panda, you just mentioned it earlier, right? That the teachers that we sold the product to, they were not on Twitter. We were not marketing on Twitter at all. They were in Facebook groups. They were on Instagram because a lot of these teachers had their own little Instagram going because they were also selling other things. Essentially, online teaching is one of many jobs that you do. So there was a lot of entrepreneurship happening there. But we would never have been able to build this as a marketing platform on Twitter because it just wasn't there. So we went to where our customers actually were on Facebook, and that is what drove all of our marketing, not Facebook ads. We just were present in groups and then had the social network effect of peer recommendations, word of mouth, really, give us our constant stream of new users. But yes, we went to where they were. That's maybe the most important thing. Go to where your customers are. Don't stay on Twitter because you like Twitter. Twitter is great for founders, but if your audience is somewhere else, go somewhere else too.
Yes, that makes sense. And like stay on Twitter still just for the peer group, would you say? Just for the
absolutely. Like the people like you who organize things like this, you can only get this on Twitter. Like there might be indie hackers forums or Hacker News, God beware. Like there are other communities out there where people communicate, but Twitter is such an engaged and supportive community. Like that most people, when you talk to them, like your friends and family who are not entrepreneurs, if you talk to them about Twitter, they think about Donald Trump, or they think about politics in general, or like there's a lot of divisive communication happening around celebrities and politicians. That's also Twitter. But our little community, the indie hacker, solopreneur, creator economy community, this is one of the most supportive and motivational communities I've ever seen anywhere. And I've been around the internet for a while, right? It's just incredible. So if you want to be surrounded by people who, like you, want to build something positive, something that empowers people, you want to get into the indie hacker, solopreneur, creator economy group. Of founders on Twitter and connect with them. Like I every day I see people helping other people become successful because people have understood that Twitter is a potential win-win scenario, right? If I help you today and you become successful, you'll help me eventually. You will help somebody else that will then help me, or whatever, like however many jumps it takes. This is an empowerment cycle where the rising tide lifts all the boats, really. That's what Twitter is to me. At least our little bubble of Twitter. Just don't talk about politics because that's going to be a problem because that invites in all the negativity. And we have a very positive community.
Yes. So I have a very interesting question from Abhijit. He's asking, when is the right time to start growing a Twitter audience? Is it once we develop our SaaS idea, or should we have to focus on social media growth simultaneously? Like, do we start building an audience and business in parallel or in series?
So to me, building an audience happens around two distinct brands. One is the business that you want to build, which is the professional audience. And then the other one is around really you as a person, as a founder, as a developer, as a thinker, as a person that wants to serve other people. That's the personal brand. And the good thing about the personal brand is that it transcends any business success or failure, right? If I start a new business today and it fails tomorrow, I'm still gonna have 70,000 followers. Like this, they're not all gonna be gone. But if my brand has all those followers and the brand falls apart because I don't know, like the business doesn't work or I sell it or whatever, then everybody is gone. So I would focus on building a personal brand more than a business brand, than a professional brand. They can intersect, they can overlap, and usually they will, right? If you look at people like Justin Jackson and Transistor FM, Justin talks a lot about Transistor. Transistor retweets a lot from Justin. There's a lot of back and forth. Or Noah Bragg and what he did with Potion, like his Notion to website converter. Potion always retweets Noah. Noah always retweets Potion. There's a lot of interaction between the founder and the brand. But Noah's brand and Noah's following is much bigger than that for Potion. And Justin Jackson's brand is way bigger than that for Transistor. Even though Transistor is making him the money, his personal presence that he has built, not just as the founder of Transistor, but also the guy that used to run the snowboard shop and the guy that wrote a marketing book for developers and entrepreneurs, like that guy has the value. That brand is the most valuable thing. So if you are a founder, if you want to build a business, you want to become an entrepreneur in your community and in another community that you're serving, you should start just showing people that you have something meaningful to say, that you have experience in one particular field. If you're a developer, you can always talk about the stuff that you recently learned how to do, because you can be sure that obviously there's many more people that are way more advanced than you, and you will never catch up. That's just the reality of how careers work, right? We all start at different points and we have different speeds. But you, 2 weeks ago, that is thousands of people today. And you can help them learn the things you just learned by just writing a blog post, creating a tutorial, capturing like a screencast or whatever. You can show your expertise as a software engineer, as a founder, as a designer, as a marketer, by just commenting on what you do and sharing that, building in public, really. You don't even need to have an idea for a business just yet to build this brand, because you're always going to be good at something. And even though you may think, oh, I'm not the best, doesn't matter. Like, you were not as good as you are today a couple of weeks ago. And obviously you improved, so you can help other people do the same, right? And that's the mindset that you should approach building a brand, building an audience with, before even thinking about a business idea. And then the good thing about this is that you already have people watching what you're doing, and then you can like talk to them, with them, about you coming up with a business idea. You can say, oh, I had this really cool idea. I built a little prototype, or I am building a little prototype. Do you want to watch me? Do you want to watch me on Twitch building it live? Like, people will engage with you over your idea, not just the full business, over the actual process of building the thing. You can get feedback, you can get inspiration, you can get other people's knowledge. Like, if I'm following you, and you are making a mistake that you don't know about, right? Because you've just started building a business and you're focused on coding, you're building your tech stack, and I tell you, hey, I ran into this issue 2 years ago when I built a similar product. Here is how I solved this. The fact that I saw you doing it was the precursor to me being able to help you. So if I don't see you doing it, I can't help you, and you're going to run into the mistake. And that's what building in public is about, right? Giving other people the opportunity to support you. It's not just about you making money. It's about other people being able to help you. And for that, building your personal brand and sharing a story along the way is extremely powerful. Start today. That's really all I can say, because you really should. Like, there's no reason not to.
There's a quote on your Twitter banner which captures this essentially. It's called learn, teach, repeat.
Yeah.
This is exactly what you what you're doing, right?
Yeah, it's the learn, teach cycle. It's really about, I learn something, I'll teach it to you. you learn something from it that may be more than I learned, and then you teach that back to me, and then I have something that I just learned, and I get to teach that to more people, and the cycle continues. It's like community improvement through these really, really short feedback cycles that just increase the overall knowledge that is being produced by and within any community. It's incredibly powerful, and the more of us doing it, the more everybody will benefit. Because this is what the course that I just released today is built on 50 videos that I did for free over like the 2 or 3 months ago, right? I just recorded a video every day. I posted it on Twitter, and everybody can watch them for free on my YouTube channel. Now, of course, I turned it into a product because people told me to. Hey, I would buy this. And I was like, okay, I guess. And then I compiled it into an actual product that is more easy to consume. But everything I did was already out there. Everything is already available as knowledge for free. That means that anybody who's interested in this can just sit through these 50 videos that contain 50 intros where I tell people who I am. So I cut them out of the original course, the course that I just did, right? So people don't have to listen to that 50 times, which is, why that's a product. But the idea is to put all your knowledge, to give as much as you can, so that the community can benefit, and then show what I call eventual reciprocity. The idea that at some point, every human being can only take so much stuff for free. And this differs for every person, right? Some people can take very huge amounts of free before they ever feel they should pay. And everybody who's been on the internet in the early 2000s when Napster and LimeWire were around knows exactly what that means. And eDonkey and torrents and, we got a lot of stuff for free before we paid back then. But now today that I am in a much more financially secure situation, I don't look into these options. I buy things because I value the person creating them, right? Because I can. And now I do. So I have a limited capacity to take free, and now I want to give back. And this happens all the time in online communities. You give, and then at some point people think, okay, this guy has just given me so much, I want to show my gratitude. And you don't need to buy my thing to show me gratitude. Just sharing my free stuff with more people is already enough, right? Tell your other entrepreneurial friends, hey, this guy just made a couple really interesting videos. You might learn something from them. And then they share it with their friends, and I get more mind share on my things. So I get more feedback, and I can do better things tomorrow. That's already valuable for me. And this reciprocity, this feedback loop, that works so well for every single person who is willing to give for free up front, because something is going to come back, and it's always going to be a net positive in the end.
Nice. Awesome. Fantastic answer. There's a question from Shivani. When you talk about a personal brand, how do we overcome anxiety, imposter syndrome, if you're already burnt out trying to build a product?
Oh man. Yeah.
Is it too late?
Is never too late, but it's always hard. Like, and I had burnout twice. Once was when I worked in San Francisco for a VC funded Silicon Valley business, which you can probably expect to be burnout creating, because we were living above our office and working 6 days a week. It's like way too much expenditure of energy for a product that now doesn't exist anymore, right? That's the VC world where everything just fails. And then the second time was actually just before we sold Feedback Panda. I was the only person in our company of 2 people, right? Danielle and I, my partner and I was the only technical person. So I had all these responsibilities for keeping the servers running and talking to customers when they had a data problem or whatever, fixing the product when an integration failed. It was all me all the time. And that created a lot of pressure and a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress. And over the last 2.5 years, I've come to live with the physical consequences, because it was such a strong stress-induced anxiety and burnout. So I know where this is, and I know how you feel in that moment. And the only thing I can tell you is to just not force yourself to be successful, because the expectations that we put on ourselves are so powerful, because they are such, we hope, right? We want, we think we deserve, and then we see tiny bits of failure and they crush us because it's, why doesn't this work? And that is just a human feeling. The only thing I can say is that if you invest in relationships, instead of investing into product or into marketing or whatever you would call it, but invest into connecting with people and helping them and getting a kind of supportive connection going, that over time will increase the surface for your opportunity surface, and then something will strike that feels like, okay, this is so much easier than anything I've ever done before. But I can tell you one thing, I have started a lot of bootstrap businesses in my life, and all of them have failed until one didn't. And I can tell you with Feedback Panda, we were looking at it. I was building the product. Danielle was the first customer. She was using it because she was an online English teacher. So I built it for her, but with a bigger audience in mind. And then other people started using it. And on day one, we had 80 users, 80 from nothing, like 80 people started looking at our product, signed up, and started using it. They didn't just sign up and never used it. They used it. And then I noticed, okay, this has never happened to me before. I have never built anything where people actually wanted to use it immediately, right? There was a pull, there was demand, and we were satisfying it. And all of a sudden, things just clicked because we were doing the right thing at the right time for the right people in the right way. And before that, I'd done the right thing for the wrong people in the right way, or the right thing for the right people at the wrong time in the wrong way. Like there's all these potential things that you have very little impact on, that you can only hope for things to be right. So by opening up the opportunity surface and understanding that even if this doesn't work out, any step towards building higher connectivity with my peers and with the people that I want to serve is going to get me to that moment. It's a lot of trust. It's a lot of belief in this eventually working out. That is the only thing I can really say here, because I know how mental health cannot be overcome with logic. Like I could give you the most pristine thing right now with the best guru advice, and it wouldn't help you because you need to help yourself. And I think the only thing here is really trusting that, essentially trusting in the goodness of people that you have helped and supported.
Having trust and trusting in the reciprocity is
that's a concept that is always true, because we as social animals, we will need to give back. Otherwise, society wouldn't work. So that reciprocity is my glimmer of hope for everything I do. And most things work out, some don't. I launched an NFT collection because I was greedy for a second, and that was stupid. So good that people called me out on it and didn't buy it, because it was just oh yeah, I want to get in on the crypto FOMO. I'm glad I did it, so I learned that I am also susceptible to this stuff, and I'm glad people didn't hate me too much for it. But yeah, there's so much going on where everything is experimental that we do, and by having people you can trust, being surrounded by people that are honest, that are helpful, that are their authentic selves as well. Like nobody is like acting like they're an entrepreneur. Like I think I'm actually surrounded by actual entrepreneurs, and they give me advice that actual entrepreneurs would give actual entrepreneurs, right? There's no abstraction layer between this. And by doing this, yeah, I just find that my decisions that I make are easier and more productive. So okay, I'm just going to stop the monologue at this point. But yeah,
Shivani says every word resonates so well. Genuinely grateful for this answer.
Well, I'm glad. I'm really happy for the question, because too few founders talk about mental health issues, and too many founders talk about product issues. Right? We could talk about like pricing and features and tech stacks all day long, and it wouldn't help anybody who is currently in a rut. But I think exposing people to concepts like trusting each other and eventual reciprocity is probably going to be doing more good than me telling you that you should totally build an Elixir Phoenix JavaScript application next time. Because first off, is it really a good idea? And then it won't help you if you have business issues, or even stronger, like internal personal issues. And we all have that. Like imposter syndrome, just one more thing. I feel it right now. Maybe that helps, right? Like I've been doing this for years, and I know that what I do and say is actually good for people because I see the outcome, and I still feel like maybe somebody else should do this, because it's just our minds. That's the human mind is afraid of change, for good or for bad, doesn't matter. We want our mind, the monkey mind wants us to shut up and hide and do nothing, because life is great as we know it and no change is needed, right? And the capacity for positive change, for growth, that scares the monkey mind just as much as the capacity for failure. That's where imposter syndrome comes from. At least that's how I feel about it. Because I know I'm doing something useful, but the mind is telling me, because it just doesn't want it to change. So maybe that helps as a reframing exercise. If you feel imposter syndrome, just consider that imposter syndrome is the flip side of growth, the potential of growth. Because whenever you're just on the brink of making a change for better, your imposter syndrome will kick in, because your mind wants to protect you from change. Doesn't know what kind of change it is. It just knows, oh, there's change coming. Better stop. So that's where growth happens if you take that step. Right? So maybe that helps. That helped me, because that's how I reframe it every time.
One related, so I'm glad you spoke about your NFT collection and how you failed, and you shared that as well publicly. But in general, when we look at people who are building in public, they tend to share only their successes, their wins, and they don't share their failures or their vulnerability. Like, how should we approach it, especially when you're starting out? I know when I had like less than 500 or 1,000 followers, and I shared my vulnerable side, and nobody responded. Right, that was such a such a sad feeling that I am sharing my biggest challenges, and there are not even one like on a thread.
Yeah.
How do we deal with this current problem?
One thing that immediately comes to my mind when I think about this is that I don't trust people who only are successful. I cannot trust a person that is only successful, because in my reality, in my life, is that everything I did had a positive side and at least a little negative side as well. Any choice you make, right? It's like you get a dog, wonderful living being, wonderful friend and companion. I have to get up at 4 a.m. to let her out because she needs to go pee, right? Little negative, amazing upside. But if I only look at the amazing upside, I'm missing out on a substantial part of the experience. So anybody who only shares the positive stuff, they have to have something negative there. And the choice that they make in not sharing this is a deliberate choice. I don't trust them. And everybody thinks like this. So if you share in public and nobody sees any kind of sign of an imperfect journey, people will not trust you. Really. Now, nobody will trust you. You're probably not going to trust yourself anymore, because if you think that this is my journey, well, I talked about it, but this is what actually happened. You become get this cognitive dissonance that is really hard to get rid of at this point. So what I'm saying, share the bad stuff. That is actually making you more authentic and actually more trustworthy, right? If you talk about today, I launched this product, 0 sales. What am I doing wrong? That is super interesting, because around you are hundreds of founders who've done the same thing but haven't talked about it. But they all want to talk about it. They all want to learn, what did I do wrong? Or how can I do this better? Let's have a community discussion. Here's my opportunity. Here's this guy talking about the exact same thing, that the same mistake that I made. I can talk to them now. Engagement. Now you have somebody who wants to talk to you about the thing that you did and they did, and figure out how you can do it better. That's where learning happens. That the opportunity for growth is right in that sharing of your failure. And that's why I love to share my failures. Like when I see something that doesn't work, I'm just, yes, this is so much better than sharing, oh, I got another 100 sales. It's great to be able to share that you got sales, but what is that inviting? That is maybe inviting positive things like people being happy for you, being proud of you. It's also going to invite the envy and the kind of, where people start trolling you or trying to suppress your success actively or whatever it is. So by sharing the negative or the neutral things, let's just start with those, right? Things with, and not anything happened, nothing happened. You can tap into people's sense of, okay, this seems to be a trustworthy person, because vulnerability is the requirement to be able to build trust. And if we build an audience, what we're essentially building is trust between one person at a time, or between two people, multiple people, every single time. Every single time you get a follower, they give you a tiny, tiny little bit of trust. They hope that what you have to say in the future is worth their time. And then over time, if you deliver that, the trust grows for every single person in your following, right? You don't have 1,000 followers. You have one follower 1,000 times. And every time you interact with them, you interact with the individual. And if you do it right, trust grows, and through trust comes opportunity and partnership and outreach and, impact, or whatever you want to call it. But that's where it starts. And if you want me to trust you, you need to be trustworthy. And to show that you're trustworthy, you need to be a real vulnerable human being. Hence, good stuff and bad stuff.
And yeah. And even if it doesn't get any responses,
that is also an indicator, right? The fact that you may just not have the right audience yet. Or again, Twitter is a very active, almost synchronous platform, because if you are on Twitter and something happens, you see it. If you are not on Twitter for a day or two, you might not see it at all. So if I share something today that a couple hundred of my followers would resonate with, maybe just 10 of them are online today or tomorrow, right? And then maybe just 5 of them get to see it because their feed is full of other things as well. So I usually say, repeat yourself, repeat yourself, repeat yourself, repeat yourself, right? Because the idea is that people are either there or not to see it. And even if they see it, they may not be at the right point of their journey. Because if I talk about like selling my business, and I did that in my first book, Zero to Sold, it's a great topic. It's an aspirational topic, but most people are not at that point yet today. But they might be at that point 2 years from now. So I talk about selling my business every couple months, because new people will have graduated to that point, right? And that's a whole trick really behind content on Twitter and engagement on Twitter, is to repeat yourself. Like if you look at any talk show host or a guest on a talk show, and they go to 5 different talk shows, they're probably going to talk about the exact same thing, because they know 5 different audiences, and I want all of my people that follow me or that are in my audience to know the same thing, because that's what I teach. That's what I am about. So repeating yourself is perfectly fine. And sharing things. Well, the problem with building in public is that things happen at any given point, right? Today I did this, tomorrow I did this, and these are different things, and I can only talk about today. So the way out of it is to just do it every day. Talk about, or on a regular basis, right? Talk about the things you did on a regular cadence, so that people, okay, every Friday this person talks about their business, or every day there's a little bit of like a screenshot or some kind of list of things they did, whatever. Building the capacity for people to expect something of you is halfway there. Then you need to deliver on it. That's the hard part. But, by being consistent, you will create this expectation in people that you have something to say at a certain cadence. And that creates, again, trust. Because if you have done this for 10 weeks, every single day, you can probably guess that this is going to happen for 11 weeks or 12 weeks or a year. Like the consistency is at the core of this as well. Ooh. Getting through my coffee here, already done.
Right. So Pankaj, is an interesting question. You mentioned that building an audience, the interest group is very diverse and distributed.
Yeah.
How would you recommend narrowing down the focus area?
So in my book,
niche, many people find it difficult to find their niche online. They say that we are multi-potential, we have so many interests and so many passions. How do you go about it?
Yeah. You mentioned my second book, The Embedded Entrepreneur, earlier, and that's exactly what this book starts with, because one of the hardest parts is to actually figure out who you want to serve with your business. Because most people think, I'm just going to build a business that helps everybody, right? Because if you have everybody, then you have no edge. You are so general that you're not specific, and somebody who's more specific than you will get your customers, like, give them more value because they can help them better. So the idea in the first step for any business endeavor that you want to go through is to figure out who you want to help. And that kind of is this, right? Figure out which specific niche audience is your main audience. You can always go beyond that later. But if you can figure out today who can I help the most? Like the absolute most. Who do I want to help the most? The absolute most. Then this is a niche that you can focus on. And that's kind of what the book does, is a little guide, just step-by-step guide to figuring out like what communities am I already in? What am I interested in? Who do I already help professionally? Who do I want to help professionally? Where can I see myself the next 5 years? All of this. It's in the book, doesn't really matter. There's also a free version of this article on my blog called I think, Finding an Audience for Your Side Business or something. Might want to look that up as well, because you can get it for free. Why not? So the idea really is to figure out, who do I care most about? Who has the most potentially interesting problems in the space? Who has a budget to pay for solutions to that? And how big is the market around it? Like, could it sustain me as a business? Could it sustain more than me as a business, which is usually better because, competition exists, but also, is it small enough to not be immediately attracting the gigantic companies that have millions of dollars in just marketing budget, right? Like the ones where you have $20 in marketing budget, they have $20 million in marketing budget. Who's going to show up, right, in people's ads? So that's definitely one of the things that you want to do. And this kind of translates into finding a Twitter audience as well, because you want to build an audience on Twitter that is aligned with your business audience. So I would recommend doing this exercise. Maybe if you are in multiple different Twitter audiences already, still a good exercise to do is to list them all, what all the kind of different things that people are interested in. Like I said, for me, it would be entrepreneurship, and I think indie hacking and solopreneurship and writing and nonfiction writing, fiction writing. What else would it be? Course creating and software engineering, front end, back end. Like, all of these are potential audiences that are following me and that I am following myself. And then you would rank them. You would start, like I said, you have affinity. How much do I like these people? Do I want to spend 10 years serving them? You have opportunity, which is, do they have interesting problems? You have welcome, which is, do they have money to pay for this stuff? And then market size, really. Like, are there enough of them? Are there too many, or just the right amount? Goldilocks kind of moment, right? And then you rank these things, you give them values, and you have a list. And then the top one is the one with the highest potential, because you like them the most, they have the most potential opportunities, and they have money to pay for it, and the market is right-sized, and that is the niche that you want to focus on.
I would just recommend everyone to, when they go to buy the Embedded Entrepreneur, get it off Gumroad and not from Amazon, because on Gumroad you get the sheets, the exercise sheets that Arvind is talking about. On Amazon, you can't get them. So when you, very interesting Notion sheets, the dashboard, you can import it, and then you can start filling out your audiences, and every step it will help you, find your niche and find it. I did that exercise last year when the book came out. Some interesting answers came up. I'm doing my experiments as well.
I'm happy about that. Thank you. Yeah, Notion is one of the most incredible empowerment tools for content creators that I've ever seen. Like, it's just the fact that you can build something in Notion and have other people clone it into their own Notion and then use it for themselves is, obviously that's how we've dealt with files before, right? Like, I give you a Word document or an Excel sheet with macros and stuff, and then now you can use it by yourself. But the ease of which this now happens in Notion, and the fact that I can update mine like every now and then, and you get the fresh version, it's just wonderful. So yeah, thanks for pointing that out. Yeah, obviously I have info products out there that make this easier, but I'm still glad to talk about it, because there's nothing secret about this, right? The idea to find people and find their problems and then build a business, that's not new. Right? That has existed. Customer development has always existed. Customer exploration has always existed. There are other things out there, like what was it called? Sales Safari, or, that there are many, many ways where you look at a group of people, you figure out how you can help them, and then you help them. That's just business, really. But in a way that I found worked for me, and yeah, the Notion documents in there is tracking problems, right? That's one of the things in a community. You join a community and you just watch. That is kind of you take out your binoculars and you watch them talk about their problems. And then whenever somebody mentions a problem, you make a note. And you do that for a couple of weeks, a month or so. And all of a sudden, you have a list of ranked problems with the intensity and the kind of problem and the potential solution right there. Just data-driven business Wonderful. Which is why I like these kind of things. Thanks for pointing it out. That's always nice to hear that you
I
did
feel
that.
that you created your info products in reverse order.
Mhm.
So find your following should be
Yeah.
like building an audience, and then somebody builds a
Yeah.
business via the
Yes.
embedded entrepreneur, and then somebody sells the business
Yeah.
when they need zero to sold.
I think the same way. It's the weirdest thing because zero to sold is the most comprehensive thing I ever did, right? It talks
Yeah.
about literally zero to the moment where you sell the business. It's everything in there, like figuring out what you want to do, who you want to work for, and then how to start and how to build a tech product, and then, how to find customers and marketing and how to hire. And, it goes all the way through the business. And then when I had that book released, and it's going to be 2 years old in
2 weeks.
13 days. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
2 weeks from now. And there's gonna be a special week coming up. Just saying. It's gonna be nice. I have a couple things planned. But when I had this book done, the feedback that I got is this is amazing. This is super helpful. This is like a guidebook. I'm gonna have that on my desk throughout the next year, which is really nice. And people actually took pictures of it, which, by the way, that's the most wonderful thing you can do for a creator is to take a picture or a screenshot of their product and post that on Twitter. Like it doesn't matter if people buy the product or if they get it as a gift or whatever it is. You don't need to buy my stuff, but just taking a screenshot of you being interested in it is more than I could wish for. Just saying, right? Because that's something you could do with every creator. Every book you read, every tool you use, you're gonna do the best and have the most impact on their life by sharing that you use it and that you like it. And I do that a lot with other things too that I find mind-blowing, like Descript or Notion. Like, even though these are big companies, I still give them a shout out because they're just so great. Anyhow, when I had that book done, people talked to me and they shared the thing that their biggest feedback was, I'm at the beginning. I'm trying to figure out how to set this all up. It's awesome that you talk about writing or selling your business in the end, but I'm not there yet. What I'm actually interested in is how to find the problem, how to find my customers, how to figure out what I should do. So that's where the second book came from. That's why The Embedded Entrepreneur is The Embedded Entrepreneur, because it really takes this initial part of finding your audience and it dives really deep into that. And half of The Embedded Entrepreneur is essentially a Twitter guide, really, right? The second half. It's a lot about Twitter and how I use it. And a lot of that informed Find Your Following, because people told me, hey, you wrote a really nice half of a Twitter guide right there. Could you dive into this? Could you tell me more about building in public? And then that's what the course is. Like, it's zooming in onto the beginning more and more. I don't really know how much further I can zoom in, because now we're talking really about like figuring out how to engage with people on Twitter, and it's a very feedback centric course and a very authenticity centric course too. Like, a lot of building in public is all about being your own person and not hiding behind a mask. So that is what a lot of my course is about stopping to think that you need to be anything but yourself and using the things you already have. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's this whole bird's eye perspective and then zoom, 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 zoom. Yes. I don't know. I don't know why this happened, but
Yeah.
that's just how it happened.
I read Zero to Sold back when I was still in my full-time job, and it felt like, okay, this is good, but what do I do with this right now, with this information? And then I read The Embedded Entrepreneur, and then things started to make sense. Like, okay, this is what I need to do at my stage. I think this is probably the perfect book for me to go in and explore. And now, I think, of course, your Twitter course is there are like so many Twitter courses out there right now. But yeah, yours is the most comprehensive and
Well, thank you.
and covers every aspect and does it more authentically.
That's what I focused on, because I agree there are a lot of Twitter courses out there, and there are a lot of good ones too. I took the one by Daniel Vassallo. Daniel is great. Daniel is an amazing person, and he understands Twitter, and that's kind of why I got inspired. Hey, if he can do a Twitter course, I can do a Twitter course. That's kind of where that came from. And I talked to him. I talked to him about this when I released mine, and I said, hey, I don't want to infringe on you. I did this, just want to tell you. And he said something really nice to me. He said, I said everything that I wanted to say, and now you say whatever you want. What a nice thing to say. Isn't that the most empowering thing to say? Like, okay, I have this product, I said what I want to say, and you do you, and you share your version of it, and together it's making life better for everybody. I just really enjoyed that. And I recently got the chance to talk to Daniel on the Indie Hackers podcast, by the way, with Cortland and Channing. That was fun too, having a conversation about indie hacking and making money and education and everything. That was really nice. So it's just fun to be surrounded by all these amazing people, these entrepreneurs, these founders, these creators. Yeah, absolutely wonderful. And you're right. I got more actionable with every single product. It's also something that I learned because I'm not a writer by trade, right? I didn't learn how to write. I didn't learn how to do anything really. I mostly self-taught, right? I'm self-taught coder, self-taught writer, self-taught video, whatever that is. You know, like I'm just learning because I enjoy learning. And when I wrote my first book, I thought I need to share everything I know. And I did. And it's still actionable because I had editors that helped me with this. But I noticed that, people don't want to learn everything. They want to learn one thing specifically. And that's why it went into this kind of zooming in and in and in, because you can make any topic more elaborate by looking at one major part of it and diving into that. Hence the Twitter course as well, because that is half of the Embedded Entrepreneur, which is 1/10 of Zero to Sold.
Nice.
It's crazy.
One thing about that podcast on the India Hackers podcast with you and Arvid, that was again something that was like way out of context for a lot of India hackers starting out. Because nobody is like, very few people are in that situation where you guys are, which are like post-economic. Like all four of you there were post-economic, but everyone listening is not. So everyone wants to make that journey, and that's what I felt when I was listening to it. But that was the point.
No, I completely agree with you, because it's always super hard to not retroactively connect the dots. Right, that's one of the things. We all have survivorship bias. We all have generalization bias. Like, we think we can extrapolate our personal experiences into generalizable knowledge, which is not usually the case. Like, I always tell people to not listen to my advice. My advice is to not listen to my advice, but to contextualize it within your own life, right? Because what I have experienced, my advice or my learnings, my anecdata, really. And I draw my conclusions and I give you as much as I can just to explain to you why I draw these conclusions. But you look at my data, you look at my conclusions, you might come to a totally different conclusion. Wonderful. At least you come to any conclusion, right? That's what advice really is to me. Advice is something you need to very much contextualize. You very much need to understand why somebody is giving you advice, right? For me, it's hard to not sound like I'm trying to sell you my books, because I kind of am. I gotta be honest. Like, I like when people buy my work because it validates the thing in my work and it helps them. It's supposedly a win-win situation. But my advice always has this little color, which is, okay, he's just trying to sell me something. So I try to give you as much for free as possible to make it very clear, not just trying to lure you into buying a book, and actually trying to help you. And the book is a way for you to do it while you're sitting, while you're having a bath, or while you're on vacation or whatever, right? The info product is a different way of me teaching you something, which you could probably just follow me on Twitter and you'd learn the same things over 2 years' time. If you buy the book, you get it in an afternoon. That's really what this is. So any advice always should be highly contextualized to the person giving it and what are their motives as well, which is what you said. It is hard not to hear some kind of privilege out of that conversation, right? I bet that must have sounded like, oh yeah, here's these rich guys talking about how to do business. And sorry, I tried not to, but it's the topic itself didn't lend itself to be too humble, to be honest, right?
Yeah, I realized that.
Yeah, and that is always a problem, because at this exposed position that I'm in now with 70,000 followers and having had some success, it's hard not to sound privileged, because I am. And it's hard to suppress that or reframe things so they're more accessible. Right. And it doesn't really matter, I think, if you have 70,000 or 7,000 or 700 followers. It depends on how you talk to people. Hey, do you want to help them, or do you want to sell them something? Right? I try to steer in towards the helping part, but yeah. yeah, heed my advice and don't listen to my advice too much, or not blindly. Maybe that's do listen, but think about it. Maybe that would help.
For
Reflect.
Sure. Awesome, awesome. Last few questions. So, because the hour is almost up. So,
wow, I didn't notice. I have no watches. I have no clocks. I have an empty calendar almost every day, so I don't know. But yeah, cool.
Right. So, whatever, both in Zero to Sold and Embedded Entrepreneur, and most of the people who follow you are SaaS founders who want to build a SaaS business. But do these principles apply? These principles apply for creators as well, who are not software engineers wanting to build SaaS businesses, but maybe info products, knowledge products. And how does that work?
Okay, you know what I was actually thinking about is awesome. Like, did you read my mind earlier today? I was thinking about this ladder of wealth creation thing, because there's this big blog post by Nathan Barry from ConvertKit about, like, you have servers, info products, and they build a SaaS, and then there are people out there who build a SaaS like me, and then they go into an info product later, and all of a sudden that becomes their successful business. It's a spectrum. It's not a ladder. It's not a pyramid. It's a prism, because what you need is the spectrum, right? You don't there is no right end goal to building wealth. The trick, and I think that's what hopefully came out of this conversation with Daniel and Cortland and Channing, is to diversify. Diversifying income, that's wealth creation. And it's the same reason why we actually sold our SaaS business back in the day in 2019, was that all of our wealth, both for Danielle and I, was locked into this business, SaaS business. And it was, for the lack of a better term, wildly successful. Most successful thing I've ever done. We were at $55,000 in monthly recurring revenue. That's $600,000 a year. That's a $1 million business, like in terms of exit value. And that was something that we needed to keep running, because if we didn't run it, it would just go away. All of this potential value. And that's why we sold the business. Also, I was on the verge of burnout, so that played into that too. And we wanted to diversify our income. That was the main consideration. And ever since then, we've kept diversifying. We have investments in stocks and other funds that fund bootstrap businesses. A Calm Company Fund, I'm a LP in that, funding other companies. Like Hauling Buddies, by the way. Like Hauling Buddies is a company funded by the fund, because the fund thought, okay, cool, but SaaS business, we're going to fund them. And I try to put my money where my brain is. If that's the right phrase, like I understand SaaS businesses, I understand Bootstrap, so that's what I fund. But we also, that's also why I diversified into info products, because I want something that is not just me maintaining a server. Right, I'm doing consulting still. If somebody is interested in learning how to do all these things and I help them, they can pay me a lot of money per hour. Right, that's also an option. So the diversification is the idea. This is not like I started with an info product and then I built a productized service and then I built a SaaS. You could just as well start with a productized service, build a SaaS, and then turn your knowledge into an info product. Or you can start with a SaaS and then kind of build a service on top of that is more concierge-style productized service, and then sell your knowledge about that in a course. Like, everything is possible. It's about the connectivity of these diversified items that makes you money. So what I'm trying to say, SaaS is not the goal. The goal is to have a diversified stream of income where one can break away and you can easily replace it or compensate it with the others. And that's what Daniel Vassallo has done so well with his, what is it called? Many small bets approach. I think that's the phrase. Many small bets. You try little things and you see if they grow, you put more money into that. If they don't, well, try another thing. That is one of the best ways to not risk everything. Which is like you earlier, before we started this conversation, the recording at least, you said many people in India quit their job and then they started a bootstrap business or a side project or a new business, whatever. That is risky. Quitting your job and doing something completely new, highly risky thing to do, because you have no money coming in and you have to trust that you can do it. You can get enough money to sustain you within a short amount of time, which is why many people try to get funding, right? Funding helps you with that. But for a bootstrap business, you don't need to do that. You can build this as a side project as you are already still employee at a company. That is possible. You can also write a book while you're an employee at a company. You can do a little course while you're an employee at a company, right? That is the small bets approach also means small side projects approach, which is, by the way, something that I highly recommend for people who want to build anything really, is to start it as a side project, figuring out who do you want to help. You can also do that as a side project, right? To do your research as a side research really, while you're still having a day job, and then slowly build this. Feedback Panda, we were running this as a side project while both Danielle and I were still full-time employees, until it made $10,000-$15,000 in monthly recurring revenue. Like we had $10,000 come in every month, and we still only did it at night because we wanted to make absolutely sure that we make enough money from this thing if we quit our jobs. Not the other way around. We quit our jobs and then we have to make money. We didn't want that. So focus on side projects and explore anything you can do. It doesn't have to be a SaaS, could be anything.
Amazing. So we'll just take one last question from the audience. So Rich is asking that he has an interest in building a new Stripe app for customers, but he searched through all Indie Hackers and Stripe topics, but he could not find any pain points that are appropriate to solve. Like, how do we go about this? Like, our interest is somewhere, but we are not able to find customer pain points there.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like an idea first problem, because that's that's what it is. And we can talk about this. It's still a good idea to think about it like that, because you know the technology that you want to work with, and you kind of already are somewhat limiting your audience in a good way, right? You have people who want to use Stripe, right? Who is this? Because if you want to help indie hackers who want to use Stripe, all of a sudden you're in a pretty small market, because SaaS founders, is maybe not, like particularly bootstrapped SaaS founders, is not the most financially interesting group of people to serve. Because I can tell you one thing, my permanent link is making 3 figures a month. My MRR and permanent link is like $150, because it's a product that I've built for myself. I use it by myself, and other people for some reason pay me for it too. But it's not something that is like the biggest SaaS business in the market. So if I have $150 coming in every month and $100 is going into hosting, I have $50 left for anything else. So if you want to sell me a plugin for Stripe or something, right, that costs me $29 a month or something, and it needs to probably for you to make some money of this, or you get a percentage or whatever, all of a sudden that I need to make a choice. Will I pay for this, or will I just build it myself? Because I'm a software engineer. I'm an indie hacker. I love building stuff. Not a good idea. Software engineers, horrible market for most products, because you're already selling to somebody who is willing to spend a lot of time building something that they don't know if it's going to work or not. So what I'm trying to say, if you are looking at building a Stripe product somewhere around it, look into other industries where people are using Stripe that have higher budgets. When I think about my own usage of Stripe plugins. I use Stripe with multiple things that are probably used by other industries than Bootstrap founders, and that is invoicing. Like everybody needs invoices and plugins into invoicing. And then what was I using it for? I recently connected a Stripe account to, newsletter sponsorship. I'm using a newsletter sponsorship platform for my newsletter, which has a couple thousand readers, and apparently that's reason enough for people to give me money to put that little ad in there. And there's a sponsorship platform out there, forgot the name, that has a Stripe integration. And so essentially you can kind of log into your Stripe account, and then the platform manages all the payments for you, right? So newsletter owners are a much more interesting audience than bootstrappers or bootstrap software engineers. First off, newsletter owners probably not too technical. They're good at writing, not good at coding, but they still need to make money with their newsletter because that's why they run it, right? So if you can build something for, I don't know, and just top of my head, an integration for people to put into their newsletter, for people to tip them via Stripe or whatever. Now that completely not validated. Don't do this. But that audience might already be much more receptive for your little plugin than people who love to solve problems with code that you also do, right? So that's where I would look. Where do existing Stripe plugins go? What do people currently use Stripe plugins for? Or if you build Shopify integrations, right? What do people already build? Because the things that already sell, those are validated markets. And if you can build something like that, similar, more specific for one particular niche in that market, then you have a shot. So I would go at it like this. I would research the Stripe plugin repository, the Stripe integration repository. I would just do a whole, maybe a survey, or just really Google specifically for people that offer a Stripe integration in their products, and then go at it from that way. Go from the product side, the third-party product side, and go from the integration platform side and see what resonates with people. And that's where you find your specific niche.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Makes sense. Awesome. Awesome. Which says you guys nailed my question. Thank you so much. Awesome.
I'm glad to help.
Thank you. Glad to help. So one final question. This is a bit personal. So you've sold Feedback Panda. I assume a $1 million business. Like, you're not allowed to say how much is it,
Yeah.
how much was it. But did it ever occur to you that, okay, I've built a $1 million business. Why stop at millions? Go into billions.
Yes.
Why not build a bigger business?
Yeah.
Why did you not do that?
Yeah, like this is a conversation that we had, like, at that point. Like, we could just keep going, right? Like, nothing would stop us from building this to a 2 million a year business, or 5 million a year. Because with Feedback Panda in particular, like, we talked about this on Twitter earlier, right? Our niche was online English teachers teaching English as a second language online for Chinese kid companies to Chinese children using a web-based interface, remotely from home as probably their second or third job. Like, I could go on, there's more, but that is the niche that we serve with this business. So any of these little things we could have expanded on. We could have gone from online English teachers to regular English teachers who teach from home for American schools. Or we could have gone from online English teachers who teach biology online and need a different system. Like, we could have, like, branched out. That would not have been an issue.
Just one thing. I mean, yeah, that's what most SaaS businesses do, right? You look at MailChimp, they've grown out and become, not unaffordable for their initial users. That's what Intercom did. That's what Typeform did. Like, most SaaS businesses, when they find success with a small niche, they go broad and they go big.
Yes. And for companies like Intercom, MailChimp maybe not, because they're also bootstrapped, or were. If there's VC money behind it, they have to, right? They have to capture more markets. If they're bootstrapped, they don't have to. And that's why we didn't, because we didn't have to. We had a business that was making us, so we had $55,000 in revenue a month. After taxes, in Germany, by the way, that's probably like $35,000 after taxes. You reduce that number by our expenses, which is probably 10. And we were looking at $25,000. That was money for us, the two founders of the company, every single month. Right. Why would we do anything about that? Why would we start making this more complex than it was? Because the lifestyle business, well, that's the lifestyle we wanted to live. We wanted to have a business that is making us insane amounts of money, but without all the complexity of having to have an HR department and legal team and all that stuff. We didn't want that. So that's kind of why we didn't go about this earlier. And then when we sold, I already talked about it. I was in a mental health crisis and we were in a diversification risk moment. So we thought, this is big enough for the final amount of money that I'm not allowed to say to change our lives. And it did. So now I'm sitting here doing whatever I want every day of my life. That was worth it, right? So that's kind of the idea. We thought this is big enough for us to live the life that we want. Of course, we could have like 10x, 20, 50x it and live an even larger life. But that is not the life that we wanted. We wanted to move to Canada, have a little house, and get a dog. And now we have that. Right? That's really what we wanted. And that's where we are. Amazing. So the reason
most people at that stage, most people would get greedy and they'll go for the $1 billion prize, and they'll be like, I don't want a dog, I want a boat. Yeah. I want a mansion and I want a boat.
And if you want to, that's fine. Like, that's the thing. Like, you have your goals in life. My goal was sit in my basement however much I want, and maybe share with people what I learned. Maybe that's the goal. The basement part, not as much. But, live a life where I can impact other people from my own home in a way that fits with my schedule. And the other people might want to have the biggest mansion possible, or they want to buy a ranch and start becoming cattle farmers, or like want to get a yacht or something. Great, do your thing. The wonderful thing about self-funded businesses, you're not beholden to anybody. You own your business. And if you want to keep owning your business, that's one of the things that I might want to throw in here as well. You can do that. You can hire somebody to be the CEO of your business. Like, you can remove yourself completely from the operations, hire somebody, pay them $10,000 a month. We could have done that. Could have paid somebody $10K a month to run our business that made $55K and still siphon $15,000 into our accounts every single month doing nothing. Right? That's always an option. And lots of founders take that route. They just stay owners. Somebody else runs the business. That's also fine. Like, you have all the choice. And with that comes a lot of, what if I'm doing it wrong? Like, you always have those doubts. But hey, you make your choices and you choose the ones that fit your wishful thinking lifestyle the best, really.
Mostly it's about having the freedom to live the life you want to live.
Yeah, the freedom to say no. The freedom to say no is one of the most important things that I have in my life, which is why my calendar is empty, because I say to most things I say no. To you I said yes because you're awesome, but like that's why there's only like 2 or 3 things this week for me to do, because I focus on what I want to do and I invite other things in, and I don't have to. So that's real freedom for me. That's what I feel is what real freedom is all about.
I had a question. Pankaj, you want to ask?
No, there was no question. I was trying to say, like, it boils down to priorities. Like, what do you really want to do in the end? And that's your priority, then you will go for it.
Yeah, some people want to be rich. Some people want to be happy. Some people want to be free. Like, all of these are slightly different. All of these are really the same, but, different perspectives on it. And however you design that for yourself, that's what you can do. Like, that's the great thing about owning a business, because you get to make those choices. Nobody else does it for you.
Definitely.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Arvid, for taking out time. This is a fantastic, wonderful conversation. I hope everyone had fun time. I had a fun time.
Oh, I had an amazing time. Yeah, of course. That was really nice. And hey, for everybody who wants to ask a follow-up question, because I see that in the chat, just hit me up on Twitter. My DMs are always open on Twitter. And if you do a video or something, then I will send you a video back. Maybe do it in public. Like, send me a question, like mentioning me on Twitter, so other people can benefit from that. Always an option, right? Like, I'm very, very available because I have time for a reason. Told you.
Thank you. Let's wrap up. Goodbye, everyone. Have a nice day. I will, and just for people who are still there, our next guest is also confirmed. I will let you know in in a couple of days. I'll announce it via email and then via Twitter, and it'll be very, very interesting conversation as well. So watch out. Awesome, Arvid, for taking your time. Thank you.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for everybody spending this hour and 16 minutes with me today. I was really grateful for that.
Cheers. Bye.
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 Stop recording now.
Good idea.